Love is not proven by how long you hold on. It is revealed by whether you have the courage to let go when it poisons your soul. There comes a moment when your heart whispers the truth louder than your mind wants to hear. This connection is no longer helping you grow. When someone you love begins to drain your energy rather than nurture it, when their words weigh heavier than their silence, when you have to beg for the very things love is supposed to give freely, respect, care, and presence, that is the moment to stop loving, not because your heart is empty, but because it is still full and deserves to be received, not wasted. True strength is not in holding onto every bond. It is in recognizing when holding on means losing yourself. If you must dim your own light just to keep someone close, you are not in love, you are in chains. Love should not demand the death of your spirit to prove its existence. Walk away not with anger, but with gratitude for what you've learned. Let go not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to value yourself. The end of misplaced love is not tragedy. It is the beginning of your freedom to love rightly, including the love you owe yourself. Love is often mistaken for endurance, as if the longer you tolerate pain, the more real your feelings are. But true love is not proven by how much you can suffer. It is revealed by whether it nourishes your heart and helps you grow as a person. There comes a moment when your heart begins to whisper what your mind is afraid to admit. This connection no longer feeds your soul. It's not always loud, not always obvious. It can show up in small ways, when laughter feels forced, when your presence feels unnoticed, when silence between you is no longer peaceful but heavy, like a room with no air. Many people cling to love out of fear, convincing themselves that staying is an act of loyalty, but staying in a place where you are unappreciated is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. When the person you love begins to drain your energy rather than inspire it, when your days are filled with anxiety instead of peace, and when you start to question your own value just to keep the relationship alive, you have already reached the moment where love has shifted into something else. Love is supposed to bring life, not take it away. If you find yourself begging for the very things that should flow naturally, kindness, respect, attention, then love has lost its purity. It has turned into a transaction where your soul keeps paying but never receives. That is not love, that is dependence dressed as devotion. And no matter how much your heart protests, the truth remains. Holding on to a bond that hurts you is not proof of love. It is proof that you are afraid to face life without it. Recognizing this moment takes courage. It is easier to pretend, easier to wait for some miracle that will change everything, easier to believe that more sacrifice will bring back the warmth that's gone. But love that requires you to shrink yourself, silence your voice, or kill your own spirit to keep it alive was never love in its truest form. It is in these moments that you must ask, if I continue to hold on, will I still recognize myself when this is over? When someone you love begins to drain your energy instead of nurturing it, it does not always happen suddenly. At first, you tell yourself that the tension is temporary, that every relationship has its seasons of struggle. You convince yourself to stay patient, to be understanding, to love harder, as if your love alone can fix what is breaking. But real love does not thrive in a place where one heart carries the weight of two. You notice the change in small details. The conversations that used to lift your spirit now leave you questioning your worth. The comfort of their presence is replaced by a constant unease, as if you are walking on glass just to keep the peace. Even your moments of joy feel borrowed, fragile, ready to shatter with the next careless word or cold glance. This is not the natural ebb and flow of love. It is the quiet erosion of your soul. Love is meant to replenish, not exhaust. When you are constantly explaining why you deserve to be treated kindly, When you are negotiating for basic respect as though it is a privilege, something fundamental has already shifted. The bond you hold onto is no longer love. It is attachment born out of fear, habit, or hope for someone who refuses to meet you where you are. The truth is hard to admit. Sometimes the person you love is not cruel, just careless. Sometimes they do not hurt you with intention, yet the damage is the same. And because the pain is subtle, you convince yourself it is not serious enough to leave. But slow poison does not kill less simply because it works over time. Every time you dim your light to make them comfortable, you send a message to yourself that their happiness matters more than your own. Every time you silence your feelings to avoid conflict, you carve away another piece of your identity. And when love demands that you trade your peace of mind for proximity, you are not in a relationship, you are in a prison with invisible bars. It takes discipline to step back and see clearly. When you love deeply, you want to believe that things will return to how they were, that if you just endure a little longer, the warmth will come back. But true love does not require you to beg for its presence. It does not demand that you sacrifice who you are to keep it alive. When someone repeatedly chooses their comfort over your well-being, they are showing you that your heart is a tool for their convenience, not a gift they cherish. The real question becomes, how long can you keep pouring yourself out before there is nothing left? Love should be an exchange of life, not a slow drain. And when the weight of holding on leaves you emptier than the thought of letting go, you have already reached the moment of truth, even if you are afraid to name it. When you have to beg for the very things love is supposed to give freely: respect, care, presence. That is the moment when the bond is no longer what it should be. Love is not meant to be a battlefield where you constantly prove your worth just to receive the bare minimum. The beauty of love lies in its effortless giving, its quiet certainty, its ability to flow without being forced. When love becomes something you must chase, it ceases to be love, it becomes hunger disguised as devotion. You may tell yourself that asking is normal, that every relationship requires effort, that reminding someone to love you is part of staying together. But there is a difference between working through challenges and fighting to convince someone of your value. If someone truly sees you, they do not need constant reminders to show up for you. Their respect is not a reward you earn by being patient or forgiving enough. It is the foundation they naturally offer because they care. The tragedy is that when you love deeply, you begin to make excuses. You explain their neglect as stress, their coldness as distraction, their absence as busyness. You wait for them to return to who they were in the beginning, holding on to the memory of their best moments as proof that the love you deserve is still somewhere inside them. But love that must be unlocked by begging is no longer love. It is control slipping through your fingers. True connection does not keep you guessing whether you matter. It does not make you feel small, unseen, or disposable. If you must repeatedly plead for someone to respect your boundaries, to value your presence, to simply care, it means they already know what you need. They just do not value it enough to give it. And if they do not value your needs, they do not truly value you. Love is supposed to be mutual recognition, not the competition to see who can endure the longest without being cherished. The more you beg, the more you teach them that your heart is negotiable, that you will settle for crumbs as long as you can call them love. But love is not proven by how much pain you can endure. It is proven by whether it lifts you higher or pushes you deeper into despair. Every time you ask for basic care and receive silence in return, you lose a little faith in yourself. You begin to wonder if maybe you are asking for too much, if maybe you are the problem. But you are not asking for luxuries, you are asking for the essentials of human connection. Respect is not an extra. Presence is not optional. Care is not a privilege to be earned. These are the natural expressions of real love, not favors to be begged for. When love becomes a negotiation of your worth, it no longer nourishes your soul, it becomes a slow starvation. where you are fed just enough to keep you from walking away, but never enough to feel whole. And in that hunger, you forget that love is not supposed to hurt this way, that you deserve to be chosen freely, without pleading, without compromise of your dignity. True strength is not found in how tightly you can cling to someone. It is found in your ability to recognize when holding on means losing yourself. So many people confuse love with endurance, thinking that the longer they suffer for someone, the more meaningful the bond must be. But love should not demand that you sacrifice your spirit in order to prove it exists. When you are forced to shrink your light, to silence your truth, or to betray your own needs just to keep a relationship alive, you are not loving, you are surrendering yourself. We are often taught to glorify holding on. Don't give up, they say. Fight for what you love. And yes, real love is worth effort, but there is a difference between effort and erasure. Effort means two people meeting each other halfway. Erasure is when one person keeps giving until there is nothing left of them to give. Strength is not stubbornness. Strength is knowing when a connection no longer serves your growth, no matter how much you care for the person involved. If love feels like a battle you always lose, it is not love, it is captivity. A bond that requires you to betray your own values, abandon your own dreams, or constantly walk on eggshells is not a sacred commitment. It is a form of slow self-destruction. You were not created to live in fear of losing someone at the cost of losing yourself. It takes immense courage to admit that holding on is no longer noble but harmful. The human heart resists this truth. It whispers, try harder, be more patient, love a little more, and they will change. But love that is true does not require you to become someone else to deserve it. If someone only loves the version of you that keeps quiet, that always forgives, that never asks for anything in return, then they do not love you, only the benefit of your silence. Walking away is not weakness. It is not failure. It is an act of profound self-respect. It is refusing to allow love to become an excuse for your own suffering. When you choose yourself, you are not choosing against them. You are choosing against the idea that love should cost you your soul. Many fear that letting go means admitting defeat, but it is the opposite. It is choosing to live, to breathe, to honor your own worth. It is understanding that the pain of release is temporary, while the pain of self-betrayal lingers forever. Real strength is quiet. It is the strength to stand alone if you must, to accept loneliness for a season rather than live in a love that feels like a cage. The world often praises sacrifice, but rarely does it praise discernment. Knowing when to leave requires clear eyes and a steady heart. You must ask yourself, am I staying out of love or out of fear? Am I holding on because this relationship makes me better or because I'm afraid of who I'll be without it? The answers are not always easy to face, but ignoring them only deepens the wound. If you must dim your own light just to keep someone close, you are not in love, you are in chains. Love, in its truest form, should not require you to become less of yourself. It should not demand silence when you need to speak or obedience when you need to stand. Any bond that forces you to hide who you are in order to preserve it is not a bond worth keeping. When you silence your opinions, abandon your dreams, or soften your spirit just to avoid conflict, you are slowly erasing yourself. You tell yourself it's temporary, that it's just to keep the peace, that eventually they will appreciate your sacrifice. But people rarely value what you continually diminish for their comfort. If you keep making yourself small, do not be surprised when they forget how great you truly are. The tragedy of such love is subtle. You don't always notice the chains at first. You convince yourself that compromise is part of every relationship. And yes, healthy love requires give and take, but compromise is very different from self-erasure. In compromise, both hearts adjust without losing their shape. In self-erasure, only one heart disappears while the other grows unchecked. A love that thrives only when you suppress your truth is not love, it is control. You may believe you are protecting the relationship by staying quiet, by letting them lead, by never challenging what hurts you, but you are not protecting the relationship, you are simply delaying its inevitable collapse while destroying yourself in the process. The cost of dimming your light is greater than you realize. Over time, you stop recognizing the person you see in the mirror. You wonder where your laughter went, why your dreams feel distant, why your voice feels so small. And the saddest part, you begin to believe that this smaller version of you is all you're worth. That is the cruelest deception of all. Not what someone else tells you, but what you start telling yourself. True love never asks for such sacrifices. It encourages you to stand tall, to speak, to shine even brighter. A person who truly loves you does not fear your light. They are drawn to it. They are not threatened by your strength, your voice, or your independence. They celebrate it. And if someone feels safer only when you are silent, that is not safety at all. It is insecurity disguised as love. The moment you realize you are holding back who you are just to keep someone by your side, you have already begun to lose yourself. And if you lose yourself completely, what will there be left for them to love? No relationship is worth trading your soul, your dignity, or your authenticity. You were not created to live half alive just to make someone else feel whole. Real love is not about fitting into a cage built by someone else's fears. It is about freedom, yours and theirs. If you cannot breathe, if you cannot speak, if you cannot shine, then what you are clinging to is not love at all, but fear. And fear is never a foundation for anything lasting or true. Letting go is not an act of anger, but an act of clarity. Walking away does not always mean you stopped loving. It often means you finally started loving yourself. When you release someone who no longer values your heart, you are not punishing them. You are choosing not to punish yourself. It is an understanding that love should never be a constant struggle to earn what should be freely given. Many fear that letting go makes them cold or ungrateful, but gratitude and release can live together. You can acknowledge what the relationship gave you, lessons, memories, even moments of joy, while still accepting that it no longer serves your growth. Love does not always fail because it was false. Sometimes it ends because you outgrow the version of yourself that once tolerated less than you deserve. Holding on to someone who continually hurts you is like carrying water in your hands. No matter how tightly you grip, it still slips through your fingers, and the harder you try, the more exhausted you become. The relationship drains you, not because you lack effort, but because it was never meant to be sustained by effort alone. Real love does not need to be held hostage. It breathes freely on its own. When you decide to let go, you may expect anger or resentment to fuel you, but often what you feel is something quieter: relief. The weight of pretending, of making excuses, of begging for crumbs finally lifts. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head, stop wondering how to earn their affection, stop bending yourself into someone unrecognizable just to stay close. The silence that follows may feel strange at first, but it is not emptiness, it is space, space to breathe, to heal, to hear your own voice again. Walking away is not about proving a point to them. It is about proving something to yourself, that your worth is not negotiable, that your heart is not a tool for someone else's convenience. When you leave with grace, you send a quiet message. I choose peace over pain. I choose freedom over fear. I choose myself. This choice does not erase the love you felt. It does not rewrite the history you shared. It simply acknowledges that love without respect is not love at all. And when you honor that truth, you allow yourself to love more fully in the future, not with bitterness, but with wisdom. You learn to protect your heart without hardening it, to give without losing yourself, to walk away without closing yourself off to love entirely. Some believe that letting go means the bond was meaningless, but that is not true. A chapter can have value, even if the book must continue. What matters is whether you carry forward the lesson instead of the pain. You are not discarding love, you are discarding the illusion that suffering is proof of devotion. You are not leaving because your heart is empty. You are leaving because it is still full and it deserves to be met with the same fullness in return. Love is not measured by how tightly you hold on, but by how clearly you see when it is time to let go. The courage to walk away does not come from bitterness. It comes from understanding that your heart is sacred and should never be treated as something ordinary. You are not weak for leaving someone who no longer values your soul. You are wise for refusing to trade your spirit for their presence. The moment you choose yourself is the moment you discover what real love feels like: peaceful, steady, and free of fear. Letting go is not the end of love, it is the beginning of love done right, starting with the love you owe yourself. Walk away with gratitude for the lessons, with respect for the journey, and with faith that what is truly meant for you will never require you to become less than who you are.